Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here on the south side of Arran Island on this beautiful, brisk March morning, and we are here at Lagg Distillery. It is a new distillery, started being built in 2017, and the first cut of spirit came off in 2019, so only 5 years ago. And yet there are still so many incredible things happening here at this distillery. It's obviously the sister to Lagg Distillery on the north side of the Isle of Arran, where they have been producing spirit for nearly 30 years. And although that this is the younger sister of the distillery, there are some phenomenal things happening here. We are going to be brought around the distillery today by Graham, the distillery manager, and I cannot wait for this trip. So, without further ado, let's get inside Lagg and see all of the wonderful things that they're doing. So, we are at the start of our tour here at Lagg Distillery. We've just had a really wonderful entrance point, giving a bit of a history, not only of the distillery, but of the island as a whole. And I'm now joined by Graham, who is the distillery manager here. It's a bit of a special treat for us all, because you're not normally one giving tours, are you, Graham?
No, I'm not. No, normally I'm hiding in my office, keeping away from everything.
Fair enough, fair enough. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Obviously, you've been here with Lagg since the inception. You were saying there just before, you had a hard hat on back in 2017, 2018 whilst it was being built.
Yep.
But then prior to that, you've been part of the Arran family for quite a number of years, and you must feel at home here in the still room, being a still man over at Lagg Distillery back in the day.
I do, absolutely. I'll never forget my time as a stillman at Lagg Distillery. It was some of the best time in my life. Just having the control. It was like a home away from home, the still house. You knew everything, you felt everything. It was like a part of your soul. And I do admit that now that my roles have changed, I'm in more of a management role, that's kind of left me a wee bit, but I've now left it basically for the next generation of stillmen to come in to experience that. And yeah, everything's going great with them. They're
For
really
sure.
enjoying it, yeah.
And you can still sneak in here from time to time, taking all the smells, all of the buzz and surrounding sort of sounds and bits and pieces, which is great. So obviously Lagg has only been producing liquid for the last 5 years. So in the grand scheme of Scotch whisky, it's quite a young distillery, but you're doing some really interesting different bits and pieces. So can you tell everybody at home kind of what the plan is for Lagg? Obviously you've got a couple of different expressions out at the moment, but what's the sort of the main roadmap looking like?
Well, the main plan for Lagg from the day one was it was always going to be a heavily peated distillery.
Okay.
The main reason for that was it's a great juxtaposition to our sister distillery, Lagg Distillery.
Yes.
Lagg Distillery back in '95, a lot of people might not know this, was purely a non-peated distillery for most of its life. It was only till about 2008 where they experimented with some peated malts.
Yep.
And then it became a regular staple from 2011 onwards.
Yep.
And that became what is now known as the Macrimua.
Yes.
So that became very popular, and a lot of people were always asking for it, but we could only produce so much peated malt for the company. And it was like, well, 1 month a year was kind of when it was earmarked just for peated malt. And if you've not worked in a distillery, it's quite hard to explain to people how hard it is to flip the switch from peated to non-peated and back.
It's a lot of scrub down, resetting.
It's hosing out, emptying, redistilling, getting out of the low ends and faints, it's all this kind of stuff. So that we were happy to do it, but it just thought there's such a hunger for this peated malt, this peated Arran malt that everyone's after. So we were scheduling to make a new distillery in the South End eventually, because the thirst for Lagg, the thirst for the Arran malt was so great. We thought, we'll tell you what, we'll take the responsibility of the peated whisky from Lagg Distillery and we'll focus that on Lagg. And we'll make sure it's this heavily peated, dense, earthy, rustic malt. This beautiful kind of, I don't want to say, I try to avoid comparing to Islay too much, but everyone always comes down to that. They say, we're not an Islay malt, we're an Arran malt, but we're a very peated Arran malt. So that was the original plan, and since then we've kind of gone into a bit more of future experimental roles.
Okay.
So we're looking at not just 50 ppm, we've gone up to 90 ppm.
Wow.
Yeah, we've done a few of them.
That's super heavily peated,
That's super heavily peated. And we've also done 90 ppm of our local Arran barley. So we've not very much barley is still grown in Arran, particularly not stuff for the whisky industry. But every year we get a few hundred tons of it from the local farmers that we have very good ties with.
Okay.
They'll sell us the local Arran barley back.
Fantastic.
Usually it's either Concerto or Laureate. It's Laureate this time. And we'll take that back to malters. They'll heavily peat it for us, and Lagg Arran will get the non-peated variety. And so we've got a nice kind of separation here where we've got the only place where you can buy Arran barley as whiskey. There's a peated variety and there's a non-peated variety.
Okay.
So aside from that, we've also looked into other kinds of malt from different parts of the UK that we're going to be making this year. So we are going to be getting some old-fashioned IPA malt, Chevalier.
Okay.
We're going to get that soon, maybe towards summer.
Okay.
And that's going to be kind of like the beer barley experiment that Lagg Arran did many years ago.
Okay.
So we're looking to go down that avenue of trying some older heritage malts, just seeing if it can give that old kind of rustic, that antique feeling that Lagg is imposing down here.
I love it. So definitely not shy to experiment, give a few different things a bit of a go. I mean, it's interesting, you talk about kind of Ireland, and you mentioned Islay whiskies. What I love about Lagg as a distillery and as a distiller is it's definitely got its own stamp of style when it comes to the heavily peated side of things. And actually, we talk about heavily peated malts. Whilst it is 50 and going up to 90 ppm, I didn't know that, that's fascinating. It's a really unique style of heavily peated malt. Where are you getting the cuts of peat from, out of interest?
All the cuts currently come from St Fergus, so it's Highland peat, but it's Speyside Highland peat. But it's not coastal peat; it is moorland, inland peat.
Yeah.
So that gives it that. You'll know when you try the Lagg, you've got that kind of heather, grassy note, very prominent in it. Whether it's a 50 ppm Islay malt would have that more medicinal TCP kind of flavour to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's all down to the peatiness, where it comes from. So it's the heather, the grasslands, the moors, the trees. That seems to. It's hard to say how much of an impact it has, but all I can say is those bricks being thrown in the kiln must be giving off a lot of that flavour, because that's definitely coming through in the spirit.
It really is coming through in the spirit. And out of interest as well, bit of a geeky question here. Do you know if it's dry cuts, wet cuts, a mixture of both when it comes to the peat?
I think it's a mixture of both.
A mixture of both,
yeah,
fantastic,
so,
okay. Really, really interesting. Well, look, we're gonna have a little look around here now. As I say, you feel at home in the still room, so I'm sure you'll be able to give me a great tour. What are we looking at with regards to capacity?
Capacity, well, the max capacity of Lagg, where we currently stand, is about 750,000 litres of alcohol per year.
Okay.
That's if we run 24/7, 365 days, but realistically, we have shutdown periods. We also have the weekend. We're not full tilt right now.
Okay.
So what we're currently doing at is about 500,000 litres of alcohol per year. Doesn't sound like a lot, but we only just started up, and we try to focus and make sure people understand we're not a massive player. We're very popular, but in the grand scheme of things, we don't have a massive complex distillery here. It's a nice, simple, old-fashioned, mostly manual distillery.
Yeah.
So 500,000 litres on our 5th year is actually something I'm very comfortable with.
Absolutely.
It allows me to do the experimentation, as you've suggested.
For sure. Yeah. It's not a workhorse distillery, it's a bit more craft, really taking care of what you're outputting, and like you say, having a play around, doing different styles.
I know the quality I want, and the quality I'm looking for requires some time. I'm not just firing it through the door. Good. That's the last thing I want to do.
That's what we like to hear. We love a good bit of quality malt. We're here leaning against one of your wonderful washbacks. This is Oregon Pine?
Yes.
Okay, and what sort of size washbacks have you got here?
Oh, we've got 4 20,000 litre washbacks, and this charger here, where we mix a lot of them together, that's 30-odd thousand litres.
Okay, fantastic. And you were telling me something really interesting there. You've actually got 2 separate fermentation times based on the way you guys are running the distillery here. So can you talk us through that?
Yeah, of course, it's all about quality. We only work 5 days a week. We are a small distillery, so we don't have a very large team here. It's only 3 stillmen.
Okay.
So, and then we're doing rotating patterns. So to accommodate for that, we have had to kind of think outside the box a wee bit here. To ensure quality, we have a faster acting yeast and a slower acting yeast. So what the faster acting yeast will do is, at the beginning of a week on a Monday, when the boys will mash in, they'll pitch the faster acting yeast, and they'll know that will be there for 60 hours. It'll work away, and within that 60 hours, it'll get us the same quality and same volume of alcohol that a much longer fermentation would do.
Okay.
So 60 hours after that, say Wednesday, Thursday, they'll be distilling that. They'll go through those mashes, and the last 4 mashes of the week, which we know will have the weekend, we used a much slower acting yeast, and that gives them about an average of 100 hours of that yeast. So that guarantees that we're not, if we were to use the faster acting yeast for a weekend by accident, we'd end up with a big vat of vinegar.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's obviously something we want to avoid completely.
Okay.
So we have a good control over it, everyone understands what they're doing, and it just helps ensure that, although yes, there's a longer time and a shorter time, but the quality of them together is actually almost impeccable. But to guarantee that there's actually consistency, we blend all the spirit together at the end of the week so that we have the shorts and longs together. And I honestly think that brings a lot of the flavour profile to Lagg, something that's got uniqueness to it.
That's really interesting. And what would you say the difference is between the shorter fermentation time and the longer fermentation time? And what are you getting by mixing them together there?
I get a lot more of a kind of a tartness from the short one, and there's more of a sweetness in the longer one. It's just kind of like when you mix them together, you get kind of a nice balance between the two, I find.
Lovely.
Gives it so it's not too harsh in one way or another.
Yeah, absolutely. Really interesting. And you talk about blending them together. That's over here in your wonderful stills. Yes. So talk to us here. I mean, these are actually quite short stills.
Yes.
I mean, they're beautiful, aren't they? It's wonderful to be here. It's so warm. I know. I could stand here all day.
Best place in winter to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so you're mixing this together in the stills, and I mean, you must be looking for quite a rich, dense, oily liquid on the back end of it. So can you talk us through what you're looking for from the distillation?
Yes, well, as you said right away, the stills are quite short. We don't encourage too much reflux here. We don't want to have too much redistilling. We're looking for that sulphury compound, the very oiliness of it. In fact, that's originally encouraged with the mashing because we encourage a very agitated mash.
Okay.
That brings a lot of the fats and lipids out of the malt rather than esters.
Right.
So those fats and lipids will give you that kind of grass oil note that we look for in the spirit. So even from day one, before you come here a few days later, we've already planned in advance what the spirit's going to be like. So short and dumpy, lot of heat, very wide necks, straight up, little resistance, down a sharp line arm, straight through the condensers. Oiliness is good.
Fantastic.
And then repeated here, we have got a small lamp glass here at the spirit. That was to kind of allow us for some kind of experimentation in the future.
Okay.
But we do kind of run through the spirit quite quickly. It is 11.5 litres a minute, which is faster than most distilleries.
Yep.
So yeah, that, as I say, it's just to try and discourage too much reflux because we really want those heavy compounds in the spirit.
Well, I mean, you're going to put so much effort into peating your malt to such a wonderful specification. Like you say, getting all those fatty, grassy notes, you then don't want to blast all of that out of it. So keeping the reflux at a minimum, really getting that sort of rich, thick, dense, oily liquid. And that's what I love about Lagg. It's just really sitting in such a beautiful place. It's wonderful to be here, stood in front of these stills. Wow. We are in warehouse number 1. And I've just been told that only VIPs get to come in here. Cask owners, people who are very, very special. So we feel very lucky to be in here. I hope everyone at home is feeling just as lucky to have a little gander inside warehouse number 1. Graham, tell us a little bit about what's going on in here. It looks like this is sort of the filling house as well, bit of an operational place.
Yeah, we designate this as our operations warehouse. So we do all of our activities in here, such as cask filling, cask degorging, mixing, reductions, vattings, and finishes. All that is done in here.
Fantastic. All right, this is where all the magic happens. I love it. And tell us a little bit about, I mean, you're saying predominantly bourbon barrels?
Yes.
Okay, and first fill would be sort of a standard?
Yeah, first fill standard. We pull in between both sites. We take in like a massive pool for both sites and we kind of split it evenly, which would be here in Loch Ranza. But on average, the vast majority of what we put our spirit into will be first fill bourbons, and second fill bourbon will be just behind that. All in all, I would say about 80% of the casks we use at Lagg are bourbon in some respect.
Okay, fantastic.
Ex-bourbon, yeah.
But then also, as you've just said, you're doing a bit of re-racking in here, some finishing. Yep. You've got such a wonderful wealth, and I mean, you take it in, you can smell wines, you can smell sherries, you can definitely smell the bourbons, but there's a bit of everything going on in here. So you really are experimenting with a lot of different cask types, right?
God, not just second fill, first fill cask types. We've got Calvados, we've got Port, we've got Sauterne, we've got Cote Rôti, we've got PX, we've got Oloroso.
Oh gosh.
And then go down the list, we've got Chateau Margaux, we've got all these kind of things down here. We get all these unusual wine casks, all these unusual exports. And everything that, a lot of it does come initially from our experimentation with Lagranza. Okay. Lagranza was very much known for its wines back in the day. When it first started up in the early and then when they started releasing whiskey in the early 2000s, they were experimenting a lot with the wine casks. So that's kind of always been part of the Arran brand. And because we're our sister distillery, as the big sister gives the wee sister the toys, we sometimes are getting these nice Sauternes and Ports and Amaronis to play around with.
I love it.
It just gives me a good opportunity to have some fun.
Definitely. God, you're making me thirsty just talking about it. Phenomenal stuff. You were saying as well, you kind of go by the industry standard of filling at about 63.5.
Yes.
And that's really just to try and get the most out of the flavour of the wood?
Yeah, it's 63.5%. It's not only, it's a good consistent number, but it also ties in well with, it's about the strength to the barrel. It seems to be 63.5 seems to be the point where you get that most flavour profile out of the wood and you lose those volatility out of the cask. I mean, I think from what I understand, if you've casking higher than 63.5, like maybe it's cashed down fatting strength, like say 68.5, I think even after so many years, there's still so much volatility in the cask.
Yep.
It needs a lot longer to sleep.
Okay.
I think not necessarily a bad thing, but for a young distillery, it's not something we're really looking into right now. Maybe further down the line, a bit more experimentation. I'll be very happy to try that.
I was going to say, you're definitely experimenting with a few things. It would be great to see if you can experiment a bit with that, but completely understand why you're doing what you're doing at the moment. And again, we've just come from the still house and, talking about that kind of rich, thick, oily whiskey. It's really quite a robust spirit that can take on all of these different styles. So you're in such a wonderful place to be able to toy around with a bit of everything, aren't you?
Yes, it's a very unique sweet peat. It's got that chew, it's got the mix, it's got the mouthfeel, but it's also got that it's a fire. You get the flavour from the peat, is what I always like to say about Lagg, but you don't get a lot of that burn from it.
Right.
It's the flavour profile, and you get that texture from it. But it's not an inferno as it goes down the back road. You get that warmth. It's like I often call it a campfire warmth rather than a peat burn.
Love it.
And no one really understands what I mean until they try it.
Yeah, well, having tried it myself, I know exactly what you mean, Graham. Absolutely. Okay. Wonderful stuff. So you got a bit of everything in here. You've got racked, but you've also got some dunnage over here. Mm-hmm. Now, before we head up, I very kindly said you're going to share some spirits with us back up in the visitor centre. Before we head up there, we were at Arran yesterday at Lagranza, and we got to see cask number 1.
Oh.
I don't suppose you have cask number 1 here at Lagg. Warehouse number 1, cask number 1.
Oh, yeah. I suppose just for you, I can show you.
Yeah?
Come on.
Let's go. Let's have a look. We're lent up against cask number 1, which is an absolutely beautiful, is Oloroso butt?
Oloroso butt? Yeah.
It's absolutely stunning. You can see it's really taking on the patina of the warehouse. It just looks absolutely amazing. And you were telling me this is a very exclusive cask. What's the plan with this cask? We're in a warehouse full of private casks owned by private individuals, the first 700. You were saying this is for them, is it?
Just for them.
This is not to be able to be bought by the public?
Nope, this is completely not for sale. It's a gift. This cask number 1, was always earmarked as a gift for the Lagg Cask Society. We're a very small distillery and we really needed the initial injection of help. So those first 700 cask owners allowed us to continue production for the first couple of years, gave us the malt, gave us the materials that we needed to keep us going, and this is a thank you to them. So. Right. When this turns 10 years old in April 2029, it's going to be shipped away, waved out the door, and will come back as 700 bottles just for the society.
Amazing stuff. Wow. So you cannot become a Lagg Society member anymore, unfortunately. And to be honest, I cannot imagine that any of these bottles will end up on auction, because if you are one of the true fanatics that got involved in buying a cask in the first place, I imagine that this, when it's bottled, will be one of the most prized possession on your shelves. Really amazing to see it though, Graham. Thank you so much for showing me.
My pleasure.
So now that you've shown me around this wonderful warehouse, and thank you again for giving us this special tour, I'm a bit thirsty. Can we head up to the visitor centre and have a couple of drams, maybe?
I've got exactly what will wet your whistle.
Fantastic, let's go. We are here at the end, or nearing the end, of an absolutely wonderful tour, and you very kindly said that you're going to share some beautiful whiskies with me. We've got 4 expressions, the last of which looks like a lovely little cask sample, which I'm very excited about. What are we going to crack away with first and foremost, though?
Well, I think the very first thing to start with is the Kilmorey, which is the very first of our core range here, which is our regular releases.
Okay.
It's a 100% first fill bourbon release.
Okay.
And it's very cracking. It really tells a lot about the expression of the spirit. Nothing really hidden, just straight up good old bourbon.
Distillate shining through.
Absolutely.
Lovely stuff. Okay, please crack away. Now, as you're pouring this, I want to bring the attention of our audience to your whiskey heritage, because you're an Isle boy at heart, and obviously Lagg Distillery is quite young, as we've highlighted already. You know, you've only been distilling for 5 years, but you were with Arran beforehand. But you've equally got a wealth of whiskey knowledge and heritage within your family. I mean, James McTaggart is your uncle, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Amazing stuff. So obviously he was the distillery manager at Lagg Distillery from, was it 2007?
But yeah, it was in late 2000s, and he retired only just a few years ago.
Okay.
He's finally spending time with his golf bag and his 3 dogs.
Good
He's
man
thoroughly
himself.
enjoying himself.
Well earned, I'd imagine, as well. But I mean, before that, he was over on Islay as well. Was he the distillery manager at Bowmore?
He was the head stillman.
Head stillman.
Head stillman of Bowmore Distillery. He worked there for about 30 years.
Wow.
He was there long before I was born. I saw photographs of him in lab coats with full heads of hair back in the 70s and stuff.
Very good.
He was quite a man for that. But he came to Arran with an absolute wealth of knowledge, and really, I thank him. I basically thank him every day for everything he taught me, because I learned everything under him. Mm-hmm. He gave me the opportunity to work at Lagg under him back in 2011 when I first moved to Arran.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I was poached at a young age to come here.
Very good. Okay.
never looked back. But as you said, whiskey was always kind of in my blood. I grew up in Islay. Left when I was 18 because, renegade, and you want to get away from family and do anything but what you're supposed to do.
Okay.
After 4 years, I thought, you know what, I actually want to work in the whiskey industry. I had my time out there. But even then, I grew up in an environment where my whole life was whiskey, even though it's kind of hard to explain when you're from that kind of whiskey environment where everyone in your family, everyone's your friends, parents, in some way or another, either works at a distillery, works for a shop that sells whiskey, works in the tour guides, works for a haulier company shipping the barrels. Mm-hmm. Everyone in some way or another has some connection to these distilleries.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I'd imagine now that your uncle is retired and enjoying himself, he has that much more time for you to reel him in, test him on any problems or any things that come up.
He's always there for a phone call.
Absolutely, I can imagine. Fantastic.
But even going back, I've got my brother works at Ardnahoe. My cousin is in Kalila. My sister was a tour guide before she left the island. Even my mum, just after she left high school, she worked for the customs officer at Bowmore Distillery.
A serious wealth of legacy there, a real heritage then. I mean, whiskey is literally pouring through your veins, I would imagine. Fantastic.
If you cut me, it's just good old whiskey.
Absolutely, very good, very good. And I mean, just going back to this Kilmorey edition, you say this is the first release from the distillery sort of thing?
This is the first core release. We had a couple of like one-off batches. The inaugurals were the main batch releases, just some unusual expressions of some whiskey that we had. We had a bourbon for that, and then we had some sherry and some red wine Rioja firkins, small casks, just something to kind of celebrate the first kind of inaugural releases. But afterwards, you have to kind of pull that in and think, what can we show as the expression of the whiskey? What can we let this, because those kind of inaugural casks, they were all good. They were all about the firkins, the unusual wood. What can we give people that shows the expression of what is Lagg?
Yes.
And that's what we've gone here for the first Kilmorey.
Yep.
I mean, it's just straight up, unashamedly, first full bourbon, take it as you like it. The spirit does all the talking.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. Now, this is a non-age statement whiskey.
Yes.
But what sort of age stock is going into it? Because obviously you wanted something that you could put sort of out relatively quickly.
Yes.
Is it largely 3-year-old stock, or is there a bit of a blend now?
This Kilmorey will be about 4 years old.
4 years old,
Roughly,
fantastic.
Yeah. Just late 3, probably early 4, yeah.
Okay. What I love about this, and what I love about Lagg Distillery as a whole, for me, being in the whiskey industry, there's loads of new distilleries popping up. I do sometimes feel that new distilleries are just pumping out young 3-year-old and a day liquid in order to take advantage of this whiskey boom that we're seeing. And quite often the liquid does not work at that young age. I sometimes feel like distilleries are almost shooting themselves in the foot. What's incredible about this is it works so well as a young whiskey. The peat really shines through, as we discussed back in the still house there, that real rich oiliness. I mean, this just coats your mouth. There's so much flavor. And at 46%, I mean, you've watered it down a fair amount. But again, it's not from the point of view, certainly in my opinion, maybe you'll tell me right otherwise, but in my opinion, this is not from the point of view of let's just pump out as many bottles as we can and really take advantage from a revenue standpoint. This works perfectly at 46%. I almost wouldn't want it any stronger because it might take away from some of those delicacies that are coming through, some of those grassy notes that are shining through, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, the 46% was picked very carefully. We had a couple of wee test runs and we found that between 46 and 50, good sweet spots.
Yeah.
Very happy with that for the spirit.
Fantastic. And the bourbon, again, you get some wonderful vanillins. It's just everything I want and more. And to be honest with you, you know, we're here on Arran, we're talking Lagg. This is the surroundings. We've had an amazing tour. We've looked all around the distillery. As I think I said there back, you know, just looking out and around at the landscape. It is a truly wonderful place to be. I'm a bit jealous of you get to work here every day, but this is a real it's a point in time. It is very reminiscent of the distillery and of where we are. So it's a fantastic expression in my mind and a really great way to bring people into the distillery.
Yes. And you said it really kind of shows the textured nature of the spirit, which is something that I was trying to explain. It's one of those things that you don't really appreciate until you've had a Lagg and you realise, oh my God, I actually understand what you're saying. This is becoming quite an experience in the mouth. There's not just flavour. There's a little bit of heat, there's a coating, there's a smoothness about it, but there's also just that kind of mouth-watering kind of deliciousness about it. But it doesn't, the peat's there, but it doesn't hurt. It's not burning. It's not an overheating sensation.
No.
It's just a light toasting, a light burning, light kind of heat as it goes down, a warmth.
Yes.
Not a burn, warmth.
No, absolutely. It is a warmth. It reminds me of sitting in front of almost a peat fire. It's a cold day and this is going to really warm your bones and just, it's a sensational dram. And again, it just goes to showcase that when done correctly, young whiskies really can sing. So this is the bourbon expression. Now, this is a wonderful colour here. Is this sherry that we're moving on to?
This is our Oloroso sherry.
I need to...
Can you pronounce it for me, do you think?
Corey Cravey?
Well done, the Corey Cravey.
Okay.
No, you got it. No,
we're getting
well
there.
done,
Okay,
son.
very good.
Okay, so
I would have kicked myself otherwise. So this is Oloroso sherry.
Oloroso sherry.
And one thing I know a lot of people at home are wondering, I'm certainly wondering as a bit of a whiskey purist, this is natural colour?
100% natural colour, and no caramel ever touches anything from either Lagg or Lochranza.
I thought as much. Look, I wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. It's always good to double check these facts. Yep. But that's what I love, again, about this sort of a distillery, is it is putting out whiskies in such a wonderful point of view. Looking at this one is 55% ABV, so I'm really looking forward to tucking into this here. But what a beautiful colour. And again, are we looking at roughly the same age here?
Yeah, they'll be about the same age. This would have been in bourbon casks for just over 3.5 years and finished in the Oloroso sherries.
Wow, so only a finishing period?
It's only a finishing period, only 6 months. Oh. It's not a full finish.
That is shocking. You guys are using some seriously high quality casks then. Phenomenal, okay.
I can't tell you where they're from, I'm afraid. No,
listen,
no.
I'd be on the phone trying to source some myself, so you're a clever man, absolutely. Okay. So it's interesting then that you're looking at a finishing period here. Uh-huh. Is there something that you're trying to achieve between this sort of, I mean, obviously Oloroso complements bourbon very well. Is there something that you're trying to achieve in order to showcase a different sort of element of your spirit?
Yeah, well, there's always that, you want to try something, and I hate to kind of admit it, I've always been a bit of a sherry head, a sherry nut more like it. Mm-hmm. I absolutely enjoyed my peated sherry expressions. It was something I was always really excited for. When the prospect came out of what we're going to be releasing regularly, I was right in there with, we need to do a sherry finish, we need to do something. We need to add something that adds a bit of colour and a bit of oomph to the flavour. We do have full maturation sherries on site, but just the sherry finish is a good gateway to get those in the door.
Yep.
Get very high quality sherry casks in, use them for that finishing period, and they're within my stock for the next 20 years.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And again, I mean, comparing one to the other, obviously this one being slightly higher ABV, the wood tannins come through really, really nicely. It's wonderful, quite astringent and drying, but my gosh, there's a whole heap of flavor in there on top of it, right? Really, really interesting.
It's the color is absolutely. I mean, you get all this colour just from a finish, but a lot of people have complained to say it looks like a bottle of Coke almost. How deep?
It really. I'm so shocked that it's only a 6-month finish, give or take. You know, it's again, like I say, just a testament to the casks you guys are using, and again, in my mind, a real testament to why E150 is just not needed, right? Yeah. Just make sure you're doing the right stuff with the right processes, and your whiskey will shine through. I'm struggling now, though. You've put a real problem in front of me, and we've only tried the first two. I don't know which one I prefer, because they both do different things in wonderful ways. You know, this first one, I feel like the oils shine through a lot more. It's probably because the tannins of the sherry cask are a little bit more, like I say, astringent and almost sucking some of the moisture out of my mouth. This one is very moreish. This one is just, I mean, probably sit here all afternoon and start coming up with tasting notes for it. You know what I mean? You've got wonderful sherry notes in there. It really is spectacular.
Yeah, I think one of the best ones I ever kind of heard was I think it was it was a tour guide, Fred, our home brand ambassador, was describing it as kind of like hazelnut chocolate and all this. And it really once you hear that, that's all you think about. And
for sure.
I've never thought about anything otherwise since when I heard that.
Definitely. No, for me, I mean, I'm getting lots of sultanas, but there is a nuttiness in it. And I couldn't put my finger on the nut, and now you said hazelnut, I bought into it. So absolutely, lovely stuff.
But it's kind of like Nutella, almost to it.
Right, okay, yeah, absolutely.
Just me though.
Okay, no, very good, very good. So these are both available quite widely,
yes.
Right? Okay, so these are two core range expressions. You'll be able to pick these up, give or take, in any whiskey specialist?
Yeah, you can find them in almost any part of the world if you look hard enough, I suppose. You might have to make a certain phone call, but no, we've tried our best to put these in every market that Arran already has a fan base in.
Fantastic. That's really, really great to see. I mean, out of interest, roughly how many bottles of these a year would you be making, do you know?
Tens of thousands of each anyway. Mm-hmm. So they're not they shouldn't be that hard to find. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the easiest place would be to come to Lagg itself or come to Arran. You'll be able to see them not only just here, but all the shops around the island are stocking them. But no, you'll find them in most whiskey specialists across America, Europe, even Asia, where we've got a few nice wee markets there. I was actually in Japan last year for the launch of Lagg, so it's proven very popular over there too. They're stocking both Lagg and Arran whiskey in quite a number of retailers.
Amazing stuff. Well, it's great to see that whiskey from such a small island off the coast of Scotland is travelling the world, and no surprises that it has such a good reputation. It's really great to see. Now, you've got a distillery exclusive here next. Tell us a little bit about this. What's going on here?
So this is from a small series that we call the Pour Your Own. What it is it's a single cask that we think is a very special expression. This is the third one in the series. Mm-hmm. So the very first one was actually an excuse for us to get a 3-year and just a few days old cask for sale in the shop. Because we have a steel-lined cask, like a fake cask, where we take we remove a cask from duty and we pour it straight into this cask, which is in a cradle, and then people can just help themselves. They make their own label, they put their signature on it. It's all part of the experience, but it's also a way for us to get something that's not something you might not be able to find in a shop so easily straight to the customer.
Definitely.
And what we've got here is a bit of a funky Sauterne, which I was really enamoured by. It's a bit of a Marmite, I will say that. There are some people that say, "Oh, I'm not a fan of it." Some people will say it's the best, best wine finish, or say best wine whiskey they've ever actually had, because this was a finishing Sauterne and came from Lacranza, so it was used for Lacranza whiskey. And we've thrown the Lagg spirit into it for just over 3 years, and it's got some, whether it's a combination of Sauterne or the actual Arran malt, it's stripped something out of it, and it's got some lovely, lovely textures to it. So
you're selling me already.
I would like you to try this with me.
Please, yeah, absolutely, great stuff. Mm-hmm. What strength is this one at now?
This is a very hearty 62%.
I was going to say, straight away on the nose, wow. That is jumping out of the glass at you.
Mm-hmm. So this is straight from Warehouse 1, rolled up the hill and into a barrel.
I love it.
For a bottle. Has never left the island.
I love that. Fantastic stuff, fantastic stuff.
I always say for 62%, you don't taste it, do you?
No, it's actually
you don't
quite
get that
smooth.
strength.
Really interesting. So Sauterne, obviously a dessert wine. What's the thought process here? I mean, obviously, like you say, you want something special. People are traveling all the way to Arran. They're coming down to visit you at Lagg. You want something interesting. This is, sorry, you said 60?
62%.
62%, cask strength, untouched. It's really, really beautiful. I mean, it does kind of jump out the glass. There's a bit of nose prickle there, but as soon as you get it in your mouth, the texture, again, very different to the first two. That's what I really love about these lags that we're trying here today. Texture is a massive part of the experience. But what was the thought process behind Sauternes? Is there something else that you're trying to draw out?
Well, we only just really started with these unusual wine explorations. As I sort of said to you before, our big sister was always the big wine enthusiast. Distillery always had, please add a bit of water, it really opens up a bit. They always had this philosophy of using such a lot of like wine finishes, the port, the Sauterne, the Amarone. It carried Locranza very, very well. And they still do it to this day. People are massive fans of it. So we wanted to try a bit of ourselves, as I said, like the little sister chasing the big sister. So we have quite a large number of these random casks just kicking about. I keep an eye on them every so often.
Okay.
And just to see what comes out of my mind. And I remember we came across this one. When we were looking for any kind of expression we can give to people at a festival, and this one really stuck out. And we thought this was not like any of the others at all. It's got such an unusual mouthfeel compared to the other ones, as you said. It's kind of like a juxtaposition that we were looking for. Something that Lagg isn't just this bourbon and this sherry. We want to show you that we have got a lot of unusual stuff down in the warehouse. There will come a time when this will all come out. You're not going to miss it, but here's a wee taster of what's to come in the future. Mm-hmm.
It's really lovely, and there is so much going on in this glass. It's almost, for me, a little bit kind of piney, as opposed to the grassiness from the other ones, but then there's really wonderful sweet notes as well. Very, very interesting, and again, just the mouthfeel there. But it starts opening up once you've added water, and that's what's so wonderful about a cask strength dram. Start playing around with it yourself, and all of a sudden the experience is rolling and you get so many different flavors as you go. So this was a single cask?
Yes, it was, yes. Single cask once.
Is there any do you keep an eye on the fill levels? Are you do you have any visitors that are coming regularly that are getting a bit nervous that it might be done soon?
Oh, no. Well, I keep a note on all these wee casks that we keep. There's always the kind of like casks that I've highlighted for future use.
Okay.
Ones that could be good in the future. Speaking of which, the next one is one of those ones that I was sort of keeping an eye on for a while, and they've come of age now. But this is definitely something I would. It was really just to give an idea of we're not just bourbon, we're not just sherry. We have got a lot of weird things down there. We can only have one of these casks at a time. And this Pour Your Own, which was this is the series it's on. It gives us just a good opportunity to put something. We'll never put a straight up bourbon or a straight up sherry back in there for a very long time. Mm-hmm. We're going to rotate around all the unusuals we've got down there.
But I love, again, it's all handwritten. It's a real, it just brings you back. This is a real traditional way. And for those visiting the distillery, you come away with something very special that, like you say, is just not going to be seen out on the regular market. Very, very unique. So you've piqued my interest then. The last sample is something that's coming, is it?
Yes.
One of those special drams you've been keeping your eye on. You say it's just come of age.
Yes, it's really only about 3 years and about 4 or 5 months now.
Okay,
so
wow.
It's relatively just quite young. So this is one of the unusuals. It's a Hungarian Tokai cask.
Okay. Tokai is not something that you see all that often.
No, the casks are very difficult to work with. They were only about 80 to 100 litres. Some of these casks are very small.
Right.
But we were given 5 of these casks. They're second fills. They were used previously for a finish in Locranza, but Locranza very gratefully gave us them to play around with.
Okay.
Because I was very excited to get hold of them. I want to stick a spirit in everything and get hold in everything and find. So this on Hungarian Tokai, which is 60.7%.
Wow. Okay.
So this is going to be part of this is going to be the first part in a series that we're releasing called the Lagg Small Batch series, similar to something that Locranza do regularly. It took a while for us to get the labelling right, get the marketing right, etc. But we now finally have the go-ahead. And this is going to be the very first release on that set.
Fantastic. Now, I always think of Tokaj, and again, for those at home, I don't know much about Tokaj at all, but it's a Hungarian wine. I always think of it as a sweet wine.
Yes.
Is it always sweet, or do you get sort of drier versions? Is it, you know?
I'm afraid I'm not that good up in Tokaj, but from what I gather, it is always just a sweet wine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is a sweet one.
Well, it can be, yeah. I've been told by the men in the corner that it can be used for both.
Okay, it's sweet, it's dry, lovely stuff. Okay.
Thank you.
But this is a sweet one, is it?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so this is a sweet Tokaj cask. Again, kind of a dessert style wine. And 60.7%. I mean, what's so interesting about that in contrast to the Sauternes, which, like I say, did kind of jump out of the glass at you, not in a, like, you know, an off-putting way, but there was definitely some nose prickle there. You get it on your palate and it's opening up. You could almost go swimming in this one. This is very, very gentle on the nose.
So delicate.
And for only 3 and not even 3.5 years, wow. Really interesting stuff. Wow. That is sensational stuff. I can see why you've been keeping such a close eye on this one. Really, really interesting. Sweetness, there's quite a bit of caramel in there. Wow. Again, the texture of Lagg is such an interesting component. They really do all coat your mouth in such a wonderful way. It almost engulfs you with flavor. This one, the peat doesn't come through quite as much. It's quite gentle peat, you know. It's phenomenal. This is still 50 ppm.
Yep. Oh, everything here is 50 ppm.
Okay.
Yes.
Really, really interesting. I mean, this is ultimately a heavily peated whiskey, but you think of heavily peated whiskies and you think of almost being engulfed in a forest fire or being slapped in the face with TCP or whatever it may be. This is just wonderful peat here. It really does stand apart from the others.
It was something we kind of set out to educate at the beginning, that ppm is an important indicator, but it's not everything that tells you what makes peat up.
Definitely.
I mean, there are 50 ppm whiskies from Islay, but that feel like you're surrounded in a coal fire. Whereas this, I feel like what we've achieved with this whiskey, and one's just like a Lagg, is that you're getting the flavour of the peat, not the intensity of it. And that's something I was really excited to show people. There's a tickling, there's a heat, but there's flavour in it. It's not just TCP, burn, kippers. There's something else to it.
No.
You get that grassy flavour in the kind of the burning heather. All that's in there with it. And these casks, you get the sweetness with it, and the sweet peat is something that goes hand in hand with me. It's one of the things that I've been so enamoured with, and I'm so glad that I've been given the opportunity to create these mad concoctions that I can do this stuff with.
Absolutely, yeah, no, I do not blame you. I'm not surprised how excited you are about them. I mean, it's just wonderful. And again, what's so great about all of these, particularly this one, I have to say, maybe it's just because we're finishing here, it's really reminiscent of the surroundings, you know, of the terroir, so to speak. That's a bit of a key word at the moment, isn't it? A bit of a buzzword. But it really does remind you of the rolling hills, of the turf that is surrounding the distillery. It's a wonderful, wonderful dram.
Yeah, and this hopefully should be out within the next few months.
Fantastic.
It will only be available in the shop. But it's not this, unlike the rest. This will be similar to the Pour Your Own, where I'm afraid if you want a bottle, you're going to have to come all the way back to Arran.
Fantastic. Well, listen, that's not a bother for me. Now that I've tasted how good they are, I will be back. I may even follow our good friend Jack. He's coming over 3-4 times a year at the moment, so you might be seeing an awful lot more of me.
I hope he's got a big boot.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, guys, by the time this goes live, this Tokaj cask will either be available in the shop or will be available within the coming week. So make sure you get over to Arran. Unfortunately, the likelihood that Graham is going to be the one bringing you around on a tour is very slim. We had a very special tour here today. However, we've met all of the team here. They are all absolutely wonderful. There's so much knowledge, there's so much passion. And I have to say, we're sat here, this is your tasting lab, you were saying.
Yes.
At the end of the tour, and wow, it's just such a wonderful build, such wonderful architecture. There's been thought put into every single aspect. There's a wonderful shop downstairs. I'm definitely going to be having a look around, probably spending some of my pocket money now, probably a little bit too much if I'm honest with you, Graham. But make sure you get over to Arran so you can experience this for yourselves. And whilst you may be able to pick up these bits and pieces, you know, from the sofa at home or when you go out and about, the more specialist, interesting expressions really are only available here at Lagg. So Graham, with that said, thank you so much for sharing these wonderful whiskies. Thank you for sharing your story and the story of Lagg with us here today. We will see you soon, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Nice one. So we are at the end of our tour here today at Lagg Distillery, and I have to say, a distillery that I've been following pretty much since they opened. I'm so glad to have finally made it over to Arran to see for myself just how special what they're doing here really is. It truly has been such a pleasure to meet Graham and all of his team here. I hope that you've really enjoyed this distillery tour episode. If you haven't been over to Arran, hopefully it will encourage you to get on the ferry, get over here and explore for yourself just how many wonderful whiskies they're putting out. But for now, that's all from us here at the Whisky Baron. Thank you to Lagg Distillery.